Thank you. Get it?
There's Elise.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, Elise is not here
She's
yet.
here.
She's here.
Okay, she's there. Okay, Elise. The only remark I can say, thank you so very much for Saturday. You participated and it went very well. So we're having some public today. And
Madam Chair.
addition and changes to the agenda.
Yes.
Anybody want to change the agenda? I want to change the agenda right after the public talk. I'm going to move to accept those early voting places. That's the changes I'm going to make. Public comment, Lisa, do we have any?
Yes, the first person we have is Natalie Fan Gonzalez.
Certainly.
Gonzalez? Okay.
Please
Yeah.
unmute yourself.
You cannot do that.
Oh, now it is. The host
Now
has.
we can hear you. Thank you. Go ahead, please. 3
Yes,
minutes.
hi,
That's
thank
3
you.
minutes.
Thank you for having me. My name is Natalie Fanny Gonzalez. I'm a candidate for Montgomery County Council District, Local District 4, but I could change the name. I just want to make sure that I want to add my voice to ensure that we're going to have early voting sites in Aspen Hill, as well as White Oak. Aspen Hill is where my roots come from. It's a heavily immigrant community that we have there. And I think it's highly important to have voting sites near communities that usually don't vote as well. So that's what I wanted to say today. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much.
The next speaker we have is Betsy Katiti.
Betsy Katiti, please raise your hand. We don't have Betsy.
Okay, we'll move on. Next person we have to address the board is Perry Paler.
Perry Taylor, raise your hand.
If you can
Yes,
unmute yourself
yeah,
once
please, yeah.
directed, thank you.
Unmute yourself, sir. Hello.
Good afternoon.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam President and board members. My name is Perry Paler. I'm a candidate for Montgomery County State's Attorney. I'm also a Montgomery County native and East County resident. I was raised in Tamarack Triangle neighborhood and attended William Tyler Page Elementary School, Benjamin Banneker Junior High School, and Paint Branch High School. So as you can imagine, East County and the White Oak community are both near and dear to me. I appear before you today to speak in support of the White Oak Community Recreation Center being designated by the Board of Elections as an early voting location. The White Oak community is home to a large population of African American and immigrant voters. Many of the White Oak residents rely on public transportation. Currently, the closest early voting sites to the White Oak community are at the Marilyn J. Praisner Community Center and the Silver Springs Civic Center, two of the busiest early voting sites in the county. The commute to these centers via public transit takes over 40 minutes each way, depending on traffic. Further, bus service is less frequent over the weekends when many residents are available to vote. Many White Oak residents have shared that they work 2 jobs between the hours of 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. during the week. Convenient early voting, specifically weekend early voting, is the only option for these individuals that work 2 jobs to support their families. Allowing for the White Oak Community Recreation Center to be designated as an early voting site would increase access to early voting for White Oak residents. We must develop practices and procedures that will allow all residents to fully participate in the democratic process. Therefore, it's critical that we work to expand opportunities for all Montgomery County residents to vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Any other?
There are no other individuals.
Any other person who's there who would like to talk? No, thank you. Now I would like to change 2 motions. The first one will be having considered all the data provided by the staff regarding possible location for early voting center for the 2022 primary and general election, all of the written and public comment and all of the criteria for the selecting an early voting center are required under Maryland law. I move that the board select the following location: Activity Center at Borough Park, Damascus Community Recreation Center, Germantown Community Recreation Center, Jane Lawton Community Recreation Center, Marilyn President Community Recreation Center, Mid-County Community Recreation Center, Montgomery County Executive Office Building, and Nancy Dasek North Potomac Community Center, Potomac Community Center, Sandy Spring Volunteer Fire Department Station 4, Silver Spring Civic Building at Veteran Plaza, Beaton Community Center, and White Oak Community Center. Do I get a second?
I second the motion.
David was the first.
Yes, we have board members who have their hands raised. I don't know if they have a question, Madam President, or. they're just-
Alice, you have your hand raised. Do you have?
Alice first.
Yeah, I raised it just so that I could be unmuted.
Oh, okay.
And I raised it
Alex?
just so that I could second the motion.
Oh,
Alex?
Yeah, same thing for
You're-
me. I had muted when the other speakers were talking and I had raised my hand to ask Jerry to mute me.
Thank you so
Mr. Vincent, could you lower your hand now, please? Thank you.
It still is up, Alex.
Could I request that we stop the screen sharing? I'm having trouble seeing my colleagues right now. Maybe I don't know how to do it right.
There you go.
Is that good?
Thank you, yes.
Okay, all right. then. The second motion.
You wanna
Oh,
discuss on
the-
the vote?
Oh, any discussion regarding my first motion? I know David seconded. No?
Madam President,
Yes, ma'am, sir.
again, I'm pleased to rejoin the board, having been away for a couple of years, but as I mentioned during the public hearing, I think this is fair and equitable to all the county stakeholders and all the interests at stake here. And I think it preserves a very good and diverse balance throughout the county. And I think it also meets all the legal requirements for each site. So I'm very pleased to support your motion, Madam President, and I would urge my colleagues to do so as well.
Thank you so much, Alice. We're happy to have you back. Those in favor say aye.
Nahid?
Aye.
Oh, David, sorry, I didn't see you. Where are you, David? Okay, your hand is up. Sorry.
Yes,
Go
yes, my hand is up. First of all, I'd like to, again, welcome Alex back to the board. I just wanted to agree that I think that this is a fair and balanced plan, that our process on this was democracy in action. Madam President, you and I have been talking about these issues, and I know I've been learning from you and understanding your position better over the last several months. And I think that we did a good job of listening to the communities, and that this reflects that. I very much would like also to thank our staff for all of their work on this, our attorney, Kevin Karpinski, our board members, our state legislators for giving us the additional early voting sites, and our county executive. I think that this is a good result for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you for your input. Alice?
yes, someone in the chat wanted to get a reminder of the last two sites that were in the list. They didn't hear it properly.
Staff is responding.
Okay, the last two sites, Beaton Community Recreation Center and White Oak Community Recreation Center. That's the last two.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other? No? Those in favor say aye.
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 No said nay. And I hear a dog somewhere. Dog voice.
The dog doesn't
Please
vote.
silence the dog. We don't want a dog votes. Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. The I have it. So we have 13 early voting center. The second motion. I have to read all over again. Having considered of the data provided by the staff regarding possible location for early voting center for 2022 primary and general election, all of the written and public comments and all of the criteria for selecting early voting center as required under Maryland law, and move that the board select the Bauer Drive Community Recreation Center, subject to the following condition. Condition 1, the county government agree that the Bauer Drive Community Recreation Center should be designated as a 14 early voting center, and that the county government provide the funding necessary for Bauer Community Recreation Center to serve the 14 early voting centers. Did you hear me?
Yes, I second it.
You raised your hand, David. Yeah.
Yes, I second your motion.
You second the motion. Second the motion.
David Neiman seconded the motion.
Okay, David, go ahead. All right then. Any?
Yes, if I could comment very briefly, I think that the Bauer Drive Rec Center was an outstanding early voting site for us at the very beginning, and I think it's going to address a number of different issues that the board and the staff have been looking at. We're going to have significant crowding at the executive office building, our smallest site, but one that's very well located. And this will help to alleviate that, as will the North Potomac site and the Gaithersburg and Potomac sites. I think that voters in Olney will be able to take advantage of using the Bauer Drive site, as well as voters in Leisure World. And we did hear from a number of people in the community who were supporting this site. I am hopeful that we'll be able to get the funding and the approval for it. And I want to thank you, Madam President, for your leadership on these issues again, and for the excellent conversations we've been having, in which we have both spoken and listened. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much. Any other comment? Those in favor say aye.
Shoot.
Diane has a comment.
Diane, you have a comment?
Yeah, I couldn't get the hand up fast enough. I just want to say I have worked many past elections at Bauer, and it is I think, a voter-friendly location. And I'm welcoming of the fact that this might help us promote in-person voting over mail-in voting. And I want to thank everybody for all the hard work they've put in selecting these sites. And thank you, Naheed, for your leadership.
Thank you, Diane. Any other? I don't see any hand. Okay, then. Those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. No opposition. Thank you so much. So we have, if the funding is available, we will have 14 early voting sites. Oh, this disclosure of campaign, our board attorney reminded me, ask you guys whether you contributed to any person who's running for an office. Diane?
Yep, $35 to Kelly Schultz in August.
Okay.
I
David?
think. August, September, August.
David?
Nope.
Elise?
No.
Alex?
No.
Alan?
No.
All right, then. I didn't either, so you're okay. I mean, I didn't contribute. So, election director, Miss Margaret Jurgensen. Margaret?
Good day, board members. My name is Margaret Jurgensen. First of all, with the action items, the letter to the state administrator to use the pallet marking devices was sent to the board members. The percentages related to the early voting, PowerPoint presentation, the square footage, as well as the public transportation information was added to our PowerPoint presentation. The staff met with the Montgomery County Public School staff, and they agreed to permit our the board to utilize all of the locations that are possibly under HVAC consideration. So that became a non-issue. The State Board of Elections, the poll book acquisition for the 2020 election continues to move through the procurement process and is at that last best offer stage. The losing bidder does have the right to file an objection. The Board of Public Works did address the topic of cost sharing of the poll books and the printers. David Brinkley was called into the Board of Public Works meeting regarding the cost of the poll books and printers. And there was a commitment made by Mr. Brinkley before the Board of Public Works members that there will be a 50-50 cost sharing between state and local government. This is an important fiscal win for local government, and much of the success and efforts are due to the MACO lobbyist, Kevin Keneally, Mayo members, including Allison McLaughlin, who worked with the team to educate everyone on the issue. The number of printers ordered for Montgomery County is 1,315. We did already have 85 in our inventory. So the Board of Public Works did move forward with the procurement of the poll books, printers, and with this new policy, it's a savings of over $350,000. I cannot emphasize enough that this issue has been lobbied for 6 months before the legislature and SBE, as well as the Board of Public Works, and a special acknowledgement needs to be given to Allison McLaughlin, who over the last 6 weeks spent a lot of time educating MACO assigned staff person Kevin Keneally as to the issues surrounding this particular issue. So thank you, Allison. The state board also advised the local boards that the facilities that will have a drop box must have a 24/7 camera surveillance with the ability for us to capture and store data. The MOUs with the facility need to reflect this new requirement. I did send to you a list of the locations that we used in the 2020 election. And just for your consideration, we're not going to discuss it this month, but, and I also need to let you know that Leisure World did say yes since the time that that chart went out. We are continuing to get more information from the state board with regards to how we acquire additional SBE drop boxes, but no information is available at this time. The state biennial meeting was held August 25th. Most of the members were there. Also, the state board officially gave us notification that there were going to be 13 sites with 1 optional. And they are still in the development stage of the new forms for the MOU, as well as the paperwork that needs to be completed for the early voting sites. But at this time, what we need to do is move forward we do have a letter of record from the county executive and the county council stating that they are supportive of funding the 14th site. And that would be an attachment if we don't get the proper paperwork from the state.
Madam President.
Margaret, did you finish?
Yes, yes, I think David has a question.
Yes, right. David, yes.
I actually have a few, but the first one is that Margaret, I'm not certain that we can consider a letter from the council and executive to be the action that's necessary under the law. I would like us to consult with Kevin, but my own thought is that there needs to be some further action on the part of the executive and the council in order to approve of that site. I think that I'm very optimistic that we will get that, but I don't know that we can consider a letter urging us to do something as approval.
David, I concur, and we will cover that in the budget. It's part of your budget supplemental.
Okay. And then the other thing I was going to mention is that I want to second your thanks to Allison and to MACO for their actions relating to the cost sharing on the electronic poll books. But I wanted to add a couple of people to that. Senator Cheryl Kagan, who is attending this meeting, introduced legislation during the last session to require a 50-50 split on election equipment, and that certainly helped to set the table for this decision. And our board, by unanimous vote, and I want to particularly mention Jackie Phillips on this one because she also was a strong supporter of this when she was on the board. But our board, by unanimous vote, wrote to the budget secretary to, as you know, to encourage a 50-50 split, not just for Montgomery County, but for all the local governments. And I don't know if we were the only local board to do that, but we certainly made our voice heard on a bipartisan basis. And so I want to thank board members for having supported that and having to help make that come out the way it did, and thank Allison and Mako for closing that deal, which is obviously of great importance to our county and to others. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Cheryl, thank you so very much on behalf of the board. So you're a great help and great friend to our board. Yes, Alex, you're yes.
Madam President, I had a couple of questions. When our election director mentioned that the public schools have agreed to make the polling places needed for the conduct of the election available for the primary, does that mean that we don't have to worry about moving any of the polling places that we had thought before were going to have to be moved, that the problem has been entirely removed?
Good question. Margaret?
Yes. Basically, of course, the 5 locations or 6 locations that are absolutely demolished, we will not be able to go back to. But the additional locations that the school board, which I believe were 14, that originally they suggested that we would be required to move and would be unavailable. After much discussion, we had several discussions with staff, and we worked through all of the logistics. So just the facilities that are being demolished will be required to be moved. So, and I can provide you with the list, Alex, if you would like. It was distributed in the June meeting.
Yeah, very good. No, thank you. And thanks to Margaret, to your advocacy and others on the staff that helped make that happen. That's, I think, a really good result. I had one other question, and this is partly a function of my coming in the middle of the story here, but is the acquisition of new poll books that you had talked about, will those be ready for the 2022 election or no?
The poll books, I would defer to the state board. They are still, as reported to us at the state biennial meeting, they are in the last portion of the procurement process. And I believe it's on the agenda for the latter part of this month. At this time, I can only be certain that printers have been purchased and that we will receive delivery beginning in the first part of next year. And that's when we'll begin the acceptance testing and then inventorying that equipment into our to this location. As for the poll books, there's no further information that I can give you that's any better than what was described at the state board biennial meeting. So right now the answer is I do not know when we are getting the poll book. I do know that we are getting 1,315 printers.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
And they are compatible with the current poll book that we have.
Thank you, Margaret. Sharon?
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate being able to speak. For the record, Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the Senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville and the Vice Chair of the Senate Environmental, Education, Environment, and Health and Environmental Affairs, which oversees all election bills. First off, I just want to say, Ami and Alex, I think you guys are just going to be terrific assets to this wonderful board. And it's nice to have people with experience. And I look forward to watching you both and cheering you on and collaborating whenever we possibly can. When on this issue that Ms. Jurgensen talked about, Madam President, when I first called and spoke with Secretary Brinkley, it was under his impression, and this is where Sometimes the stereotypes of Montgomery County, the old, rich Montgomery County, which is absurd. They thought that there was something special in our poll books and something fancier, and that's why they weren't going to reimburse any of it. And I was on that state board meeting as well and followed up. So that was problematic. I just want to be clear that any short-term reimbursement agreement is that. It is short-term. Makeup and I are still agreed that we are going to be codifying the language so that we can guarantee 50-50, regardless of who's governor, regardless of who is budget secretary, regardless of who's running our state or county boards of elections. I think we need that guarantee for local budgeting and for confidence that we can know that we will have a partner at the state level and not have a burden on our local government. So we are still moving forward. I am sponsoring that bill again. There was some confusion last year, and because we were in a COVID year, everything was harder. But it will be one of MACO's top priorities again. I will be sponsoring the bill again, and with your help, hopefully it will become law. Happy to take any questions or just pipe in there.
Any question for Cheryl?
Senator Kagan, what's the current state of the law? What does it require in terms of cost sharing?
Thank you for the question, Alex. The current state is that it's uncodified language that's 20 plus years old. And we came in with a very simple bill. I can't really do with my cast. I can't do simple bill to just put that into language so that it just said that there should be 50-50 split. When it came to issues like postage paid absentee ballots or anything, we should make sure that the locals don't have a surprise burden as they did when the process changed from the 2020 primary to the general in terms of mailing people an application rather than mailing people the ballot. There was a whole extra mailing that the cost of which was foisted upon the locals. And despite my efforts and the efforts of others to try to get the governor and the secretary of the budget to share that cost, it wasn't done. I thought that was completely unreasonable. We've got to get an insurance policy in law.
Great, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Alex.
Yes, David?
A couple of things. First, thank you to Senator Kagan, and I just wanted to kind of underscore the idea about the funding because I want to remind Alex and let Ami know, since they haven't been with us before, that the state frequently has made decisions about things and then given us 100% of the bills. And that's what was happening with the electronic poll book. And what Senator Kagan is proposing is the more traditional 50-50 split between the state and the locals. That still doesn't necessarily give us any decision power over what they decide. That we have to kind of work on, but it does mean that we don't get 100% of the bill for things that we don't control at all. And then I wanted to thank Alex for pointing out, because I read this in Margaret's report, but I somehow missed her saying it about the public schools. I just want to underscore what an amazing accomplishment that is for Margaret and our staff. We had as much as 10% of our voters who were potentially going to have to be moved to temporary polling places on election day. And obviously, when you move polling places, that can have a negative effect on turnout. And a school system has been less than cooperative in past years. And we understand their role and our role is different. But we also have a state law that is specific to Montgomery County that says that the Montgomery County public schools must provide access to buildings for election purposes to us. And I know that Nahid and Diane and I all volunteered to meet with the school system, and Margaret and her staff have basically made that unnecessary. Because they managed to essentially, close the deal. So thank you, and thank you on behalf of the voters who would have had to, go to much further away polling places. That is a great achievement, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you, David. Yes, Senator Kagan. Yeah, go ahead.
She has to be unmuted.
You mute.
Mute.
Okay,
She has been unmuted.
she's doing it.
She's been acknowledged. She has to
Just-
unmute herself.
Yes, you have to do that.
Okay, I can do it now. Thank you. I just wanted to speak to the first part of what David Naiman just said, which is the state sending the counties a bill. One of the items that's really important is the tradition has been, here's a bill, pay it. And when I say bill, I mean invoice, not legislation, obviously. So there needs to be more accountability. Counties have had an experience of being invoiced for services and devices that they didn't even use or ask for or benefit from, and yet they were asked to help pay for. So there just needs to be more accountability and more oversight. And so part of the legislative effort, in addition to 50-50, has to be itemization so that Montgomery County's board and staff can make sure that there's an accounting that's accurate and our taxpayer money is spent wisely. Now I can again, unless
Thank you.
And our
Thank you.
funders. who get
Thank you,
the-
Madam President.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. Any other? I don't see any hand raised. All right, thank you so much. Board Attorney. Personnel, Margaret has to do.
Yes, next is the budget. Kara, I would like to acknowledge that the Office of Management and Budget has assigned us a new budget analyst. Her name is Sean T. Jackson. And with the County Council, we'll be also working with Carlos Camacho. And I believe at least Carlos is on the call listening in to hear about our budget woes. So, Kara, do you want to start with the closing of FY21 and what our deficit will be? Kara.
Yes. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, you all should have a copy of the document that I have on my screen, which shows closing FY21. And the overall closing deficit is going to be just over $1 million. And by character, that is $162,268 in personnel and just over $800,000 in operating. And so I worked with the administration to submit about 1.1 in CARES reimbursement. And with Carolyn Chen, we were able to be awarded about $800,000 in grant funds. And despite both of these things, we still had a deficit in funding. And a lot of that was due to our, as the senator mentioned, the State Board of Elections invoice, because of the approved amount was about 1.5 million, but the invoiced amount was over 3. And as she mentioned, we were billed for PPE, but the state later decided that was one of the items that BOE, Margaret in particular, we did try to object to being billed. That does not happen. So you pay for it. And then later on, the state decided to reimburse all of the counties for that. And that was what lowered the fourth quarter amount. So originally, the Board of Elections expected a much larger invoice or a total expenditure in the State Board of Elections bill for FY 21, but it was $3 million. And so that is why, one of the reasons why our overall deficit was much larger. And as I said, if it weren't for the grant funds and the FEMA reimbursements, which was nearly $2 million that reduced that, we would have had Board of Elections would have had a much steeper deficit in FY 21.
To the board members, I would also like to at this time acknowledge all the work that Kara did during the COVID election 2020. we had significant challenges. We knew that because of COVID, we had certain expenses that we needed to work with the county to make sure was covered by the CARES funding and any FEMA funding that might be applicable. The bonus that we gave the election judges needed to be covered, and that was what we primarily used the grant funding for. So this $2 million kind of catch up was definitely because of the efforts of Kara and her careful review of our expenditures and trying to qualify and defer as many expenses out of our budget line item as humanly possible. But we do have a deficit of $1 million, and we will be, there is a process that will be followed to do a year-end transfer to cover these costs.
Okay, so moving on to this
Well,
year.
Kira and Margaret, just a quick question. So the deficit would have been like 2.8, but for those grants that we received. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And just a quick question about the election judge stipend. It looks like, at least under closing costs, we spent 544, but the budget was for $1 million. Am I misreading that we didn't spend or spend about half of what we had budgeted, or
So yes, I'm going to answer that. It's somewhere closer to about $1.6 million is the actual expenditure, but because we were able to move that over into grant funds, because of the hazard pay, we use the grant funds to pay hazard pay for them. That's how we were able to move that out of our general ledger and onto the grant monies. And so that's in a different general ledger.
Okay, great.
That is a one-time event.
I don't anticipate being able to, even though I'm looking, there aren't a lot of election grants available. So I don't anticipate another grant for this year, and I wouldn't expect it.
Thank you.
Could I ask a question?
Alex, if you guys wait until she finish her presentation, then you can ask question. Let her go and finish what she's saying. Okay, thank you very much. Go ahead.
Okay, so moving on to this year's, the September spreadsheet. You will see that there's just under $400,000 in personnel expenditures and very minimal amount in postage, and that should be coming from confirmation cards and green cards and things of that nature. Just your typical operations going on in voter services. Let me know if you have any questions. Just over $400,000 in expenditures thus far for this year.
Are there any questions at this time?
I have just a follow-up to
Alan?
question.
Yeah,
Alan?
Kira, isn't it true that the state not only sends us invoices, don't they also threaten to take us to collections if we don't pay it fast enough?
Yes, it is true.
You laugh, but it's true.
Yeah.
It's actually true. Yes. So
Senator Kagan, hope you heard that.
yes, it's not funny because it's very important. The State Board of Elections invoices are net 30 days. They are not to be extended. And so pay them on time or you will be charged, the county will be charged over a 17% interest on outstanding balances. So it's just like a normal normal invoice.
That doesn't sound normal to me.
It's pay your bills on time.
17%. God.
Kevin,
Okay,
are we allowed
David.
to sue? Are we allowed to sue the state if they want to collect such usurious rates from us for a bill that we have to get funded by the county government? You know, that we don't necessarily have the ability just to write a check.
Well,
Yeah.
I would not pay the interest if that's what you're asking.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yes, that's. I mean, that's part of what I'm asking.
We all will go to jail if you don't pay. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean,
Civil disobedience.
17% interest sounds pretty usurious to me.
Yeah.
Yes.
David, did you have another question for
Yeah,
us?
David has a question.
I do indeed. When Alex asked about the cost of the election judges, I was wondering if we had lower costs on election judges because we had the 40 election centers on election
No.
day rather than the 200 and some polling places, or if our number of judges was roughly the same.
It was,
No, you did. It was not. It wasn't, David. What happened was, and I'm sorry, Kara, if I'm stepping all over you here. While we did have fewer judges because of the vote centers, we had a lot more election judges because of all the canvassing. We had days and days and days of canvassing.
Yes.
So, and they had to work in all those teams. So, I'm not 100% certain that it's even actually, and now I will defer to Kara's expertise.
so I would say, so yes, I wouldn't say we had very many, there weren't quite, I wouldn't say there were less, they're about the same. Also because we had line monitors and shifts. So the actual, and that gets into, we'll get into that when we talk about the supplemental, because the actual number of election judges has been underestimated for a long time. So we spent about $1 million even before the hazard pay.
Madam President?
Yes.
Quick question to Kira. Do you think at this time in the fiscal year, is your cash burn rate about what you think it would have been? Is it about where you think it should be in terms of your rate of spending what you budgeted for the whole year?
That's an excellent question. I don't have a graphic prepared for you, but I would say that about where I expect it to be, yes, but I don't have a graphic prepared for you. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I just wanted your general sense of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we would like to discuss the need, which is related to the 14th early voting site. The Budget Committee requested that the staff provide to the board members after their meeting a copy of the supplemental report. The Budget Committee approved the request to come before the board. Before I begin, again, I wish to acknowledge staff's efforts to estimate the anticipated costs to comply with many of the new legislative mandates passed in the last session. The board should know that Kara Bumbray, our budget analyst, spent considerable amount of time working with each section to assist in formulating this budget supplemental request. The approval of this request will move the process to the OMB staff level and the council staff level for review and action by the executive and the council. There is a meeting on October 7 at 9:30 a.m. before the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee, which is a virtual meeting. And right now, all I can tell you is that's October 7 at 9:30. As soon as I get further details on it, I will share it with the board members. But right now, what I'm going to do is turn this over to Kara and let her begin. And we are doing it by topic. So the first topic is the 3 additional early voting centers. Kara?
Yes, I just want to take a minute to say thank you to Janet, Boris, and Chris. And those are the section managers for voter services, operations, and IT. And they put in a great amount of work. And you don't know me, but I'm a hound for details. And they put up with a lot to help contribute to this. And I mean, week by week of what they plan to do. So I just want to say thank you to those 3. Okay. So for the additional 3 early voting centers, we're estimating about $266,000 to set up 3 additional. And we went in and we looked at the early voting staff that's required. So that's center managers, and those are the people that sort of, I mean, you all know what center managers are, but they sort of run all the operations. We're talking about the recruitment staff that recruit all of the election judges that work in those locations. And we're talking about the community use of public facility staff. So those are the people that have to open the building to let everyone in. And because according to this election law, if you go in and you read it, as you all know, it's opening earlier and close. I think it's just opening earlier, but as you know, those sites don't close until about 10 o'clock. And if there are any stragglers. So then we have early voting preparations. Now with precinct-based results and all of the additional ballot styles, we're going to get to that later on with the personnel it's going to take to do the logic and accuracy test and the supply packing for that. That's going to be extensive. OE, the additional equipment, we're talking about the mandatory, what we now interpret as a cell phone or landline, internet access, so you can access the MD voter database from the location, all of that, all of those things, extra cables and all of that. Next, the State Board of Elections invoice.
Are there any questions with regards to the early voting centers? I also need to make note that recreation costs, because they have to open some of the recreation centers, we will have to pay overtime costs there. But are there any questions with regard to the additional early voting centers?
Margaret, just quick question. What do you think that the addition of precinct-based voting, again, this is something I was not familiar with, having been not there when I guess that happened. How much do you think that increased the number of ballot styles that you had to deploy at each site?
What that does is it increases it from, in the primary election, I think we had 71 in 2018, and now we'll have over 730 some ballot styles. So there's a ballot style for the Democrats for every precinct, a ballot style for the Republicans for every precinct, ballot style for each precinct for non-affiliated. And so this increases not only the logic and accuracy testing elements, but it also increases the complexity of packing for early voting, as well as all the ballot proofing that goes with that.
Thank you.
Okay, Sarah, Kara, if you would like to go ahead with the State Board of Elections line item.
Okay, so there's a State Board of Elections line item. There's the deficit with the invoice. You see there the current item, the current line item funding versus the anticipated funding, and that comes from directly from SBE. They send out their anticipated funding for the year, and you see that listed. The poll book printers were not included in that estimate, so that's an additional item. We also, because of the ballot marking device for the National Federation of the Blind lawsuit, we do not have an estimate on the cost of that yet, but that was not included in the original estimated billing for this year. So all those are additional costs.
The ballot marking device is a 50-50 split, and the estimate that we know that we've been advised that we will be receiving, we will be receiving an additional 197 ballot marking devices for deployment at all of our early voting centers as well as Election Day. Vote by mail, Kara?
Yes, okay. The extension of vote by mail. So outgoing postage we have to pay for, and that is a 50-50 split. The return postage for the application, the return postage for the voted ballot. We have to expand our storage. There used to be 10,000 absentee ballots. Now we are going up to 350 because that is what we received last year. We never had a line item to pay for the returned sample ballots, which is something that we pay for every time we receive a non-deliverable sample ballot. And then we also need to pay for the transportation of canvassed ballots. That's to and from. As we have expanded vote by mail, we no longer are able to conduct it in this building. It goes off site and then it comes back every night for storage. And we're estimating the cost of that. And this is all operational expenses. We're getting to the personnel expenses later on as we go on.
Are there any questions?
Yes.
David?
Kira, are you saying, I think we've always paid for the return postage for sample ballots that get returned? Am I right? And are we just adding a line item because we didn't have it before? But I believe that the board has always guaranteed that we would pay for that because that's part of how we discover that people have moved.
We've always received them back. We've always been charged for them. We have not properly budgeted for them.
Okay, so the difference here is just that we're now
It's an underfunded line item. Yes, you are correct, David.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Any
Okay.
other question?
Madam President,
Yes.
in the figures you used, Kira, did you say that we had in 2018, for example, we had received 10,000 absentee ballots, and the number received in 2020 jumped to 350,000? Or
I believe that is correct. It's to my recollection, and we can always ping Boris. I believe he's on the line, but I believe it was 10,000 absentees
in 2018?
in 2018.
Thank you.
And Boris, feel free to chime in if I'm incorrect and I'm using the wrong benchmark.
There's obviously a big difference between before COVID and after COVID.
Right.
Yes, there is.
But we're also sending applications to everyone now. And we're not saying that we're going to receive 350 in the next election, but we're saying that we want the storage available so that in a general, it will be there in case we do. And also we don't have to just store the ballots, we have to store the envelopes as well. And it all needs to be in a secure location.
And that was based on the fact that you actually received 350 such ballots in the 2020 election.
Correct. Okay, moving on. The permanent absentee list, brand new requirement under this election law annotation here. You can pull that up. I promise you, I checked it myself. There's going to be a first request to join 90 days before, and I believe the state said they were sharing it 50-50. And so that's the first request that's going to, our registered voter count is about 730, according to our statistics, is our complete voter count. And so that's the first request to join. Then there's going to be a reminder card sent out to everyone on the absentee list. And so that's the cost of both a 17-cent reminder letter. I believe it's cheaper than a card. So hopefully we'll send the letter and the postage to those people.
Okay, ballot drop boxes.
I have a question about that.
Yes.
But Kira, I see you have a cost of almost $500,000 for the permanent absentee ballot list. Will there be any savings down the road from having people already deciding that they want a permanent mail ballot?
So we won't have the first request to everyone again. The first request is only going once, but the reminder cards will continue to go out each year.
Alan,
that's my understanding of the law.
Alan, at some point in the future, and when I say future, I'm talking 2024 and 2026, when we see how the public assimilates to these new laws, as well as 14 early voting centers, yes, it is entirely possible there will be some type of cost savings. How that cost savings will be achieved is, are you going to have fewer polling places? Will you move to vote centers because you have a greater percentage of the population voting prior to Election Day? Election Day is kind of viewed as the last chance to vote.
Thank you.
Ballot drop boxes.
Okay, as you know, Chris and her team set up a complete mail system. She's estimating at least 55 boxes. And there has to be mileage reimbursements to all of the drivers. We do share the cost of the delivery of the ballot boxes from SBE warehouse to the location of the drop box. There has to be cameras at every drop box, and if there's an upgrade, if there's a change in the box location, any of those things, we pay for the camera. There's also cloud storage of the footage. So again, these are all operational expenses.
Are there any questions with regards to the drop boxes?
Yeah.
David, go ahead.
My question is, you indicated an estimate of the number of drop boxes, and I just wanted to know if the statute gives any indication of that, or basically what is the basis for the estimate for the number?
At the state biennial meeting, I believe, or Allison, you could correct me. I don't know if it was a state biennial meeting or if it was the election directors meeting this month. We were advised that if we had 52 drop boxes in 2020, that we should plan to have the same number in 2022. So I have put in a call to, and I put this call in prior to this meeting or earlier this month, trying to find out if we go and purchase, let's say, the traditional state box, what would that additional cost be to the county? I have not gotten an answer back because, as stated at the public hearing, Leisure World wants a larger box. Conversations with Asbury, they want the larger box. I don't know if Riderwood wants a larger box, but various locations that had the smaller box that we had deployed at those locations will be, the board will have to decide if they wish to go with the larger box.
Now,
Allison, did you?
Margaret, before you move on, as I understand it, we had 3 different kinds of drop boxes or drop somethings that we use. We had secured bags, we had the smaller size drop boxes, and we had the larger size drop boxes. And if I understand correctly, the vast majority of our locations had the larger size drop boxes. There were a handful at most that had the smaller drop boxes, and an even smaller number that had the secured bags. But I thought that the Asbury and Riderwood were 2 of the places that had the secured bags. And
They had the nursing home bags. That is correct.
Okay, so and you're saying that it'll be a board decision at some point as to the types of drop boxes that we use at different locations.
As I understand it, yes. But Allison, were you I think you were in on that meeting.
Yes, I was just gonna, the short answer is that no, we have not received any formal guidance from the State Board of Elections specifying a number of drop boxes. But as Margaret indicated, we have effectively had staff level communications at the biennial where my understanding of it is that there would be a very heightened level of scrutiny of your recommendations if you were to recommend withdrawing any drop boxes from a community that had a drop box in the 2020 election. But those recommendations are up to the board to make. And I believe that it's at the October meeting that we're planning to queue that up for your discussion.
I would just say, just to remind everybody about our past discussions, and I don't know whether our new members are going to agree with our previous members, but I believe that there was bipartisan concern about the use of secured bags in the past. And I personally I wouldn't want to take away any ability for people who had the secured bags to have a drop box. I would love for them to have the small drop boxes, but I'm very concerned about the possibility of secured bags, and certainly would want the board to be able to take that up before we were to use those again.
This decision will be completely up to the board, and the board will make the recommendation to the state administrator. I really don't feel that at this time we need to go over the history of the bags and stuff like that, because this is a budget-based discussion.
Right, but the reason why I mention it is that if we decide that secured bags are not acceptable to the board, then we may want to use budgetary funds to get drop boxes in those locations instead of secured bags, because I don't think that the choice should be it's secured bags or nothing. I think I personally would vote to give those locations the smaller drop boxes.
And we heard you loud and clear from the last election. That's what we're trying to achieve. And in the meantime, we have no cost estimate on what the state will charge us for their large drop boxes, nor do we have any idea of, as I stated, Riderwood and Asbury are open to the using the state large drop boxes. We just need to get a cost, and we don't have a cost yet.
Okay, thank you.
Precinct-based voting.
Yeah, I wanted to just put a fine point on that. I know we did have quite a discussion of this the last time, and Margaret, want to thank you for working on this, recognizes how important it is. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Kara, precinct-based?
Yes. So the supply carts to support the number of increased ballot styles and ballot organizers as well, and increased shelving for not just the ballots, but the additional equipment necessary to support precinct-based voting. And
we're running out of space. We have to have more shelves to hold the equipment. It can't all go on the floor. And so we need the shelving installed before the first of the year. That's a lot of paper coming in here and a lot of new voting equipment.
okay.
Precinct changes.
Yes. So after changes to congressional districts, legislative districts, county council, and the school board following the 2020 census, the Board of Elections will need to send a voter notification card to every registered voter. Again, that's about 730 voters to the cost of about $600,000.
What was that number? I'm sorry, how many?
If you're mailing to all of the registered voters that would be active and inactive, and the state orders us to send a notification of jurisdictional makeup as well as polling place makeup, we will be required to mail a new voter registration card to all of these voters of Montgomery County.
Yeah, no, thanks. I just didn't catch the number.
It's about $600,000, but this only happens once every 10 years.
Okay.
So that's why it comes as a shock.
Okay, thank you.
Storage facilities. We are running out of space at the Board of Elections headquarters, which required us to move some of our archived materials to a secure county facility, off-site, and the cost of that for this year is about $19,000, closer to $20,000. And now we're finally getting to the personnel structural deficit, which is one of our largest concerns. The administration program needs a little bit of help with project management and HR transactions as we onboard lots of temporary personnel, which is the Board of Elections' heart, and how we conduct our elections. IT, the people that are conducting security on all of the elections equipment and doing all of the equipment preparations downstairs. Those are all temporary employees and we need them year round. Operations, again, the ballot box mail system, the packing of 750 ballot styles, managing early vote centers, recruiting 3,000 to 4,000 election judges. And I still have to ask one of our main recruiters, Deborah Hamer, how many applications she actually receives, because I know it's far, far more. And recruiting people with a diverse background and going to sections of the county that are underserved to make sure that we have lots of different election judges that reflect the population of Montgomery County. So voter services is a year-round job that is constantly updating voter registration and name changes and all of that, and then issuing ballots along with absentee and doing the provisional canvass and the transformation of voter services with vote by mail has been astounding. So overtime for those peak periods with ballot proofing, processing ballot requests in a very short and timely process, responding to voter inquiries. If the vote centers are open for an extended amount of time and during early voting and election day, so is this office. As we discussed, logic and accuracy testing on every piece of equipment requires OT. And the vote centers are actually set up in a 2-day period by your IT team here.
Now 3-day period.
They're going to try to make it 3.
Now it's 3 days. They can't work that hard.
The election judge stipend, that is something that I do want to discuss because I think that we really have to redefine or really think about our description of election judges, because this election judges is not just the people that work early voting and election day. They're the people that are doing the nursing home program and every stage of canvass. So Boris came up with your new definition of election judge. So think of it as your pre-canvass election judge, the people that are stamping the envelopes as they are received and checking to make sure they have a signature. All of those people are election judges too. They're paid a stipend. So think of your pre-canvass election judge. All of those people are election judges, and canvass lasts a month. So this is why it's underfunded. The cost of off-site canvass, this is to talk about OE in our space rentals that's underfunded. We have a little bit of a polling place deficit as the cost to rent private polling place, as the cost to rent private polling places and early vote centers increases. And we also need a bit of a contingency budget because the cost for COVID cleanings, staff time, and damage to facilities has increased. And last but not least, the cost for Dr. Zelaya's SMS texting development app, which has been great, does have a cost for the development and the use of the 77788 short code application to reach other communities and other voters. It does cost $16,619 at the moment each year. And your new Zoom software is $927 a year. So the total request that we are asking for is just over 5.5 million and would bring up the Board of Elections total budget, if approved, to about 13.8 million.
I would like to make one comment before the board goes into discussion. When we sat down as staff to prepare the budget for this fiscal year, we had and saw the kind of the writing on the wall as to the legislation that was about to pass. We had anticipated that the flatline budget that the council and county executive decided to move forward with under the circumstances of COVID and everything that they were trying to manage. We knew that this budget would have to come forward and be increased. And we notified OMB, we notified council staff that we needed to come before them again to discuss the anticipated impact of legislation and some regulatory changes that were going to be put in place, let alone the cost of the poll books and printers, which had not been included in any of the budget. So this is not a big shock to OMB or the county council. And we do need the board to support this number or a number at least close to it so that we are able to officially move this over to OMB so that we can be prepared for the October 7th public discussion. Madam President, I defer it back to you.
Yes, thank you very much. By the way, the subcommittee, which was me and Alan, we met, we went through detail and we approved the request which the budget personnel are making and Margaret is making. So up to you now, you listen to all of that explanation.
Madam President, I think you should do it by formal motion.
Huh?
I think you should do it by a formal motion. Someone
Formal
should
motion.
move to go ahead and move forward with the supplemental.
I so move.
I second.
Thank you. Those, any discussion?
Madam President, I think it would be helpful if you actually stated the motion that Mr. Banoff is actually making, so we're clear about what the motion is on the table.
Alan, can you make your motion clear?
Yes, I move that we accept the supplemental budget as proposed by Kira Bunbury.
Is that good, Alex?
Is that accurate?
And this is what my understanding is, this is what would be submitted to the county council, correct?
Right. Right. Those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? No. So thank you very much, Kara. You did a good job, and Margaret along the way.
Okay,
Thank
Boris.
you.
Okay, Boris distributed the monthly statistics, and I believe that outreach information was sent to you on Friday by Humberto Zelaya. There were lots of pictures of participation in Poolsville, and I don't know if you're on, Dr. Z or Allison. Do you want to comment about the outreach? Okay, I'm not hearing anything. Allison, would you like to talk about the hiring freeze and what the status update is? And the supplemental budget can come down.
Sure, I'm happy to speak to personnel. And I apologize for the half obscured face. I am working out of a shared workspace at the moment, so you'll just have to see me from the nose up. We are, as Margaret indicated, still subject to the countywide hiring freeze. And so there is a process that we need to go through with the Office of Management and Budget in order to get that hiring freeze lifted. And as you just spent time going through, we are currently in a budget deficit. And so that means that there is a heightened level of scrutiny that applies to any decision by a department to try to hire to fill a position, because obviously turnover savings lapses are one of the available tools for the Office of Management and Budget in trying to keep down spending. And so we've gone through that process, and I want to reiterate Kira's thank you to the staff and the managers here at the Board of Elections who have really done a ton of documentation of our plans for the upcoming year, because just as that is helping Kira to describe our spending in a supplemental request. That is also helping us to build the narrative to explain to the Office of Management and Budget that the election is not just next June. The election is something that takes a fair amount of prep time, and we have work that needs to be performed by the positions that are vacant. I will note that we do have 5 total vacancies in the department, which is a pretty hefty number. These are not brand new vacancies. These are vacancies that actually occurred during the 2020 calendar year. And so that turnover savings is also part of how we have managed to keep the deficit for fiscal 20 and for fiscal 21 from being higher than it might otherwise have been. But we are well into preparations now. And so the 5 positions are the first one. The Office of Management and Budget has just recently agreed to go ahead and exempt from the hiring freeze. So yay, thank you, Office of Management and Budget. Within the next day or 2, we will have a recruitment that is going to go on the county website for a position in voter services. This is a bilingual position in voter registration. The one position in voter registration that we have that is bilingual, so that we're able to provide that line of service without escalation being required to another bilingual employee. And we have extensively documented to the Office of Management and Budget the year-round need for that position and how we need it. We need it now. 2 of the 5 positions are in election judge recruitment and training. So we have, as you will recall, we operated 2 men down in election judge recruitment and training for the 2020 election season. And we had some fabulous assistance from the Department of Recreation in getting us through that work. But the Department of Recreation employees have had to go back to their normal job because the Department of Recreation is open for business again. And so we are significantly understaffed in election judge recruitment and training. And so those are the next 2 positions that you can expect to see the county move forward with. And I'm optimistic that we are going to get those positions unfrozen relatively soon, now that a supplemental budget request is underway that gives the proper context around the positions that we need. The other 2 of the 5 positions are in election operations, and so they're more the behind the scenes work that we need done in order to really have everything run smoothly out there on election day. So that comes up with 5 total. Plus, we will have a recruitment that we hope to have going up very shortly for the seasonal work that we also need done. And some of that seasonal work is also in election judge recruitment and training, is in some, especially on the recruiting side, it's some work that we need performed this fall, work in information technology as well, that we need performed this fall before we're really ready to go live with all of our operations for the year. So you'll see those 5 recruitments plus 1 for the seasonal staff that we will be posting just as soon as the Office of Management and Budget gives us the heads up, or gives us the thumbs up, I should say.
So Allison, it was 1 in voter services, 2 election judge recruitment and training, and what were the final 2?
And 2 in election operations.
Thank you.
Elise, your hand is up. Do you have something to say?
No, my hand's not up.
It's the hand. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. If there's no further questions, Janet, are you on? I know you're technically off. We are moving from using MS Teams to Zoom. We believe that it functions more smoothly for not only the board members, but for public participation. And the other thing that we really like is that we can record this meeting, and you are notified the meeting is recorded, and we can post it on our website a lot cleaner. So I'm speaking for Janet is unmuted, so I'm going to defer to her.
I'm not sure what to speak on, Margaret.
I was just talking about the move to Zoom.
Oh yeah, it's a much better platform. We can control it better. With Teams, we couldn't like really mute people and control it, but with this, we have better control.
Okay.
Everybody is more familiar with Zoom than Teams.
Yes, that's true.
Yay.
Okay. Thank you, Janet, and
Okay.
thanks for listening in. I have no further additional reports, unless
Thank you, Margaret.
go
Yeah,
to
thank
board
you.
attorney.
Board attorney.
Hi, good afternoon. I just have one item. As Kira indicated, the National Federation of the Blind case has been settled. The Board of Public Works has approved a $230,000 settlement amount. But there's also a non-monetary component to this, which will affect the local boards of elections. And under that part of the agreement, the state has indicated that the local boards will have at least 50% of their polling locations will have 2 ballot marking devices. There will be 2 ballot marking devices in any polling place where they have experienced technical problems with the BMDs over the last 3 election cycles. And the local boards are authorized to have 1 additional ballot marking device at a polling place without approval from the State Board of Elections. And as it relates to early voting, there will be at least 3 ballot marking devices at each location, and the local boards can have up to 6 ballot marking devices without getting approval from the State Board of Elections. I know Margaret indicated that we're getting an additional 196 ballot marking devices. I think these new requirements are not going to be very onerous for us because as a rule, Montgomery County has always deployed a significant number of ballot marking devices. So most of our polling places already have 2 ballot marking devices already. So I don't think this will be difficult to implement, but it will be something that we'll need to do moving forward. Does anyone have any questions?
How many do we have before we get the 196 that you mentioned?
Margaret, how many do we have? Margaret, can you unmute yourself? David, I don't know. We'll get you the number.
Okay, thank you.
I'm pretty comfortable saying we have
Oh, Janet has
2
just
ballot
answered.
marking devices at almost everyone. Janet would know. She's still on.
No, she just answered 694, she said.
Okay. Well, that's the answer then, 694.
Okay.
And Kevin, you said the settlement required 2 ballot marking devices in each polling place where we had experienced problems in the past. Is that how you put it?
Yes. So they're going to, in connection with this litigation, each local board was required to produce election judge logs to the state board, the Attorney General's office, and then obviously the Plaintiffs' Counsel for the National Federation of the Blind. I assume they've gone through those logs and have made a determination of which particular locations there were systemic problems over more than 1 election cycle, that they would like more ballot marking devices located. And I should say that 25% of the polling places that are furthest away from the Board of Elections, they also have to have 2 ballot marking devices. So overall, 50% of the polling places have to have 2 ballot marking devices, and those that are the 25% of the that are furthest from the board itself have to have 2 ballot marking devices. But in 2020, we saw a significant uptick in people using the ballot marking devices. And so I think it's probably a good thing that we'll be able to deploy more units at various locations.
Are we able to deploy ballot marking devices that we use for early voting again on election day, or are they only deployable once?
David, part of the reason we are receiving additional ballot marking devices is that it would shift those early voting ballot marking devices from being utilized. You need to understand that we're dealing with a very tight timeline. So we don't receive the early voting equipment back until Friday morning. Friday is the same day we have to update all 1,400 poll books that have to be deployed on Monday, and to then try to flip all of the ballot marking devices so that they're ready to be also deployed, which we have little or no transportation plans to do that. So our intent is to utilize the same amount of ballot marking devices. The most of the early voting sites had not less than 6 ballot marking devices. Silver Spring and Activity Center Borough Park had, up to, I think, 14. And what we will do is we would take those ballot marking devices, and on Monday, if the state gives us permission, utilize them as our reserve so that if something breaks down, we could deploy them. We also are trying to make sure that all of the equipment, when it comes back, is functioning. And so we need to test it. And there's just this huge time crunch that makes it very, very difficult to flip.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. And I definitely understand what you're saying. That last Friday to Tuesday is a very busy time on a lot of different levels.
Yes. Does anyone have any questions? Okay.
Thank you, Kevin. New business. Anybody has any new business? David?
Yes. Madam President, would this be an appropriate time for the new business item I mentioned to you yesterday?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you. I actually asked the president for an opportunity for myself and anyone else who's interested to thank our recently departed board members, which we really didn't have that opportunity because Mr. Shalik departed after the July meeting, and our August meeting was a very brief one when Jackie Phillips left. And I just wanted to thank them both for their service and to comment on what great board members they were. I particularly wanted to thank Jim Shalik for his continued willingness to hear from the public. Jim is definitely a believer in public participation, and he showed it at every board meeting by allowing anyone who wanted to address the board to do so. And I also wanted to thank him. We did have a situation during the 2020 election when there were some allegations made about the absentee canvass that proved not to be true. And I think Jim handled it about as judiciously as anyone could in order to find out what actually happened. And I very much appreciated that. On a personal note, I'm going to disclose something here, which is that I once had occasion to be in traffic court for a minor offense. One of those occasions when no one actually wants to run into anyone they know. And of course, what happened to me, I ran into Jim Shalik. But it was a good thing that I did because Jim, completely free of charge, gave me good advice about what I should say to the judge, and it worked. So he was a good colleague. We often didn't agree, but we often did. And anyway, I very much appreciated working with him, and I'm sure that we're going to stay in touch. I also want to mention Jackie Phillips, who joined the board very shortly after I did, so roughly 10 years ago. And Jackie was a very dedicated board member and a good colleague. and was always very, there were a number of issues on which we worked together. She was as outraged as I was many years ago when we were having problems with the Motor Vehicle Administration changing people's party affiliations without their knowledge. Some of you may remember that discussion, and I appreciated that we were working together to fix that problem. She also was a strong advocate of our standing up for the local board's responsibilities, and also our not being run over by the state when it came to a number of issues, particularly about fiscal issues. And I know that she is very happy about the decision of the state to do cost sharing on the poll books, which I know was an issue that she cared about. And on a personal note, she was always very interested, and I was also interested in response. She was always very interested in how things were going for me on a personal level. Some of you may recall that we had an election officials meeting in Ocean City once, where I got essentially a personal weather forecast from my son, who was studying to be a meteorologist, where he told us what time we should leave in order to get home without getting rained on, in a drastic rainstorm. And I was driving Jackie that particular day, and sure enough, we got to, Jackie lived off of Connecticut Avenue, and we got to Connecticut Avenue in the Beltway, and suddenly it starts pouring down rain, and she looks at me and she says, "He was right. He got it exactly right." And so ever since that time, some of you may have noticed, Jackie asked me about my son so often that people were started to ask, "Is there something wrong with David's son?" Nope, she was just concerned enough to continue to ask about him. She actually gave me some suggestions, some career ideas for him that I have passed along to him. Anyway, I very much appreciated her her friendship and her as a colleague, and I just wanted to acknowledge that today. I'm going to miss both of them. I'm obviously looking forward to renewing my work relationship with Alex and to forming one with Ami, and of course continuing to work with the rest of my colleagues as we always do. And thank you very much for Nahid for this opportunity to make those comments.
Thank you, David. Don't get any more traffic tickets.
Yeah, no more traffic tickets because my unofficial lawyer may not be available.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Thank you. Any other new business?
Madam President, let me just echo Mr. Namath's comments. I'll be very brief, but Jim Shalek and Jackie Phillips are good friends of mine, and I really got to know them well when I was on the board during my first term, and it will probably be to my everlasting regret that I'm able to come back only because they are not here. And I wish they still were here. But as Mr. Shalek confessed to me, he was not getting enough intellectual excitement and stimulation in his life, so he needed to run for public office again, which I
I want to quickly attenuate myself to all the comments and thank David for Nahid for giving David, and David taking the opportunity to express thoughts that all of us really had no time to express. So thank you. Looking forward to the future.
Thank you.
I second David's remarks.
Thank you, Alan. All right, old business.
I don't know if this is so much old business, but I just feel it's imperative to remind all the board members that October 7th, we are scheduled to appear before the County Council at 9:30 a.m. before the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee, and this will be our opportunity to address the supplemental. I have no further old business.
Thank you, Margaret.
Lisa, minutes?
Approval of July 19 board meeting and August 8th. August 5. First we do July 19. Alex, you move.
Madam President, I find myself in a rather odd position, but I do this purely as an accommodation to the rest of the board members. I would like to move for the approval of the July 19th, 2021 board minutes as edited by Mr. Banoff.
I second that.
Discussion? Any comment? Those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you very much. Actually, Lisa did a very good job. I read Lisa's and Alan did minor. Thank you very much, Alan. August 5th.
Madam President,
Yes.
I would like to make a similar motion that the board approve the minutes of the August 5, 2021 emergency meeting as edited by Mr. Banoff.
Second.
Discussion? Those in favor say aye.
I think David has his hand up.
David, your hand up?
He's muted.
Okay, David, go ahead.
David's muted. He probably wants to get
David.
unmuted.
Exactly. I'm just trying to vote. Thank you.
Oh, you try to vote. Your
Yes.
vote is counted, David.
Yes, I was voting yes on both motions, but I was muted, so therefore you might not have heard me, but I did say yes last time.
Thank you. Thank you, Alan, for explanation. So both are approved. So any other? Huh?
Did they vote on the August 5th?
With them?
We did not vote.
Then those in favor of August 5th minute
As amended by Alan Banoff.
Alex, go ahead and repeat your motion, please. For
Madam
August.
President, the pending question is my motion for approval of the August 5, 2021 emergency meeting minutes as edited by Mr. Banoff.
Second, who's
That
on
was, I seconded.
Diane seconded. Okay, no more discussion. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Thank you so much. It is approved. So calendar, Lisa.
So as we move forward with future board meetings, we just wanted to confirm future dates. Are we going to continue to meet the third Monday of every month? Granted, we have the holiday in December. That is still tentative.
So the minutes, so the dates that are under consideration for future meetings, the first one will be October 18 at 2:30. The next one is November 15 for 2021 at 2:30.
Hold on, is October 20th or 18? Lisa is checking.
Oh, it is
18.
October 18.
Yeah.
Okay, October 18 and November 15.
15th, because November 20th is the next week is the week of Thanksgiving. So
Right.
November 15th is still our typical third Monday.
Correct.
okay.
Right.
Oh, sorry, David.
Yeah.
So
and-
December
and-
we would decide later, yeah.
And I was just gonna add, I gather that like we usually do in January and February, we're talking about the fourth Monday instead of the third because there are holidays on the third Mondays of January and February.
That is correct, David.
Okay, thank you.
All right? Yes. And since we don't have any other business, do I hear the motion to adjourn the meeting?
I move we adjourn the meeting.
Who's second?
Second.
David?
Alex.
Hello?
Alex seconded the motion.
Alex second the motion. Okay, those in favor, say aye.
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 The aye has it.
So next board meeting is November
Yeah, November
15th.
18th.
Virtual, sorry, October 18th,
October.
2021 via virtual.
Yeah, next meeting is October 18, the same way with Zoom. Right? Okay? Thank you so very much.
Thank you,
you,
Madam
Madam.
President.
Thank you, Madam
We
President.
finished them
Good
in
job.
2 hours, less than 2 hours.
It is
Nice.
a record-setting duration for a meeting.
Thank you.
Well, with a lot accomplished too. So,
Isn't he?
Thank
Well
you, guys.
done, colleagues.
yeah. Thank you all.
Thank you.